WebP. Excuse me.
All right. There we go.
All right, and we're live. Okay, so again, welcome everybody. We got a good crew on here today. We're going to start out talking about some things related to WebP, what it is, how to use it, specifically from the perspective of our plugin, the eWWW Image Optimizer. And then we will open the floor for any questions that we might have and issues with sites that are giving you problems. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, go ahead and you can drop those questions in the chat now or wait until we open the floor. Whichever works, we'll try to make sure we catch them all. And so, yeah, WebP. First of all, and I'm feeling like I'm repeating myself a little bit because I think I talked about this a couple months ago in our local meetup. And I was like, did we already do this in the webinar? No, we didn't. It was in our meetup. And so Kristen will have heard some of this already. But what is WebP? It's a new-ish image format designed specifically for images on the web. And so one of the things that you'll see with that, which isn't really too crazy, but they do limit the dimensions of a WebP image to 16,000 pixels, which is still ludicrously oversized for the web, but at least it puts some sort of limit on things. And so that's kind of a hint that they were trying to not, do all images. This is images for the web. But it is typically more efficient for just about any image, but not all images. So it has different kind of codecs within the WebP format that cater towards the different traditional image formats. So in the past, we've had Jpeg for photographic material, pings for sort of graphics, logos, and that sort of image, and GIFs for similar things as a ping, on transparency, of course, for both GIF and ping, and then, of course, animation in GIFs. So WebP has an animation codec. It has a lossless codec with transparency. And actually, I think it can even do transparency in the lossy mode as well with the JPEG style. But
Shane, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you have a presentation that you're sharing? Because right now it's not displaying.
I do not.
Okay, I just was double checking.
I'll pull up this so that you guys can reference this, and we can drop this link in the chat. Is WebP. So we have an article about this as well. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so it does lossy like JPEGs for photographic stuff. It has a lossless encoder, just like the ping format, and does transparency, and also does animations. So it covers all three of the big use cases with the traditional image formats, and typically will save you space and bandwidth on all of those. But again, not always. There are some images that just don't compress well in WebP, or maybe they've already been compressed too much, and WebP's like, no, we can't do anything more with that image. We had that happen a couple months ago with an image where it was just, it's already compressed too much. You could see the compression, with some artifacting and stuff. And so WebP was like, nope, can't handle that sucker. And related to that, I'll mention a case that I had come up a day or two ago as well, where that happened on a ping image. And I think it's, at least in my experience, it seems like it happens more with ping images, that we find that our other compression will outdo WebP. But in this particular case, most of the images had been converted to WebP, but there was 2 or 3 on this site that hadn't been. They're like, well, what's going on? And so we checked, and they were going through our Io Cdn, so we knew that they should have been converted to WebP if that was possible. And so I did some further testing and found that the original image had been 80-some K the ping had been compressed down in lossy mode to about 30, I think it was 37 or 39K. So pretty awesome savings there. But then Google was saying, oh, it should be 9K. And we're like, what? 9K? That doesn't sound right. And so I played around with it and checked the WebP version from the original, and it was like 55K on lossless mode, which is our default for graphic style pings. Now, if it's photographic, we would go lossy on it, but it wasn't. This was a graphic. And so then I thought, well, maybe it is, Google's doing it on lossy mode. So I even tried lossy mode, and that only got it down to 33K, and it looked like garbage. So it's like, what are you doing to get it down to 9K, Google? Because that's just crazy and not going to be good quality no matter what. So that was a case where, yeah, we're pretty sure that it wasn't, WebP wasn't going to do it, and it didn't. So, yeah, so usually, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but usually if our plugin has already processed it and didn't convert it to WebP, it's because WebP wasn't the best format. And so that'll tie into some things that we'll get to here in a minute. So that's the WebP format. Does all those things, usually saves you space, up to 40% we see, and sometimes more. Sometimes more. I mean, if you look at that one particular image, it did save over 50% from the original 80K image, but not great quality on that particular one. As I keep clicking around. Oh, and my sharing was paused as well, so you didn't even see me showing the article. Good thing I linked it, huh? Anyway, this is the article I was talking about, so if you haven't looked at it, here it is. So the next thing that we usually look at to get WebP on our sites is how do I convert my images to WebP? Of course, no one wants to re-upload all of their images. I mean, even if you have 10 images, that's just a pain in the butt. So our plugin, the Io Image Optimizer, will allow you to convert those images. You turn on the WebP conversion option, save the changes, and generally, if you've just installed the plugin, you wouldn't see this, but if you started bulk optimizing or have already run the bulk optimizer to compress everything on your site, you'll get this notice that, oh, hey, it looks like you already started optimizing. You might want to go run the bulk optimizer to generate those WebP images. And so that would be our next step. Whether we had run the bulk optimizer or not, we would head on over the bulk optimize page under media. And it's scanning the library, which can take a bit on a site with 40,000 images. That's kind of a pre-scan. It's not really doing much scanning. It's just fetching the list from WordPress of all the images. And so if you've already optimized all your images, you can choose the WebP only, and you'll need to run the force re-optimize, because otherwise, as it says, anything that we already optimized isn't going to be re-optimized. So you check both those boxes if you already did stuff, and you can get your WebP images generated. If you haven't done anything yet and you just enabled WebP conversion, just installed the plugin, no need to check any boxes. Just hit the scan button, and then when it's done, it'll tell you how many images there are to optimize, and you can let it run and go do its thing. We're not going to wait that long. That I just unplugged myself. All right. So that's one way of converting our images. Now there's some nuances here with the way that our plugin works. So by default, out of the box, in free mode, it's going to be able to compress the images using either the CWebP utility that's included and doing that directly on your server, or it'll use either the ImageMagick or the GD-PHP libraries to convert images to WebP, and that's all done on your server using your server's resources. If you subscribe to our API, you can pop in an API key here and activate that and get your images done via our cloud compression. And so that offloads that workload to our servers and puts less strain on your server, especially helpful if you're on shared hosting. But it also, of course, would get you better compression on the original JPEGs and pings as well. If your server does not have the exec function enabled, which is a long story, we have a docs article for that as well. But if your server doesn't have the ability to run the local tools and doesn't have the what am I trying to say? Yeah, if it can't run the local tools and doesn't have the ImageMagick or GD support for WebP, so if GD is too old or ImageMagick was compiled without WebP support, the next release that is coming out today will allow folks to use our API-based WebP conversion for free, but only on JPEGs, as we've traditionally done. So the free API stuff is only for JPEGs, unless you're able to do it directly on your server. So, yeah. And I'll take questions about that later if you have any. So that's the different nuances there. There's one other option for WebP conversion, which is our Io Cdn. And it's my favorite option. It's what I use on all of our sites. And it's pretty slick because all you do is, well, you go buy a plan, of course, and then add your site URL to your account and hit activate. And that's it. Now it's automatically converting every image on this site to WebP as it's delivered and viewed by the visitors. And that's all you have to do on that end of things. So that's why it's my favorite, because it's super simple and easy. No bulk optimizer needed, no other configuration. That's it. Click that button and you're done. There are some cases that I'll get to that in a sec. Don't want to get ahead of myself. So that's the different options for conversion. You can use the bulk optimizer either in free mode, API mode, or use EasyIO. So then the next step is to get those WebP images delivered. And I'm going to deactivate EasyIO so we can see the different options for that real quick. And you can all see this, right?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So usually the best method is if you can use server-based delivery. And so that's something like these Apache rewrite rules that you don't need to understand, but they work for JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs. They're also on our docs site. If you go into the WebP section and our WebP delivery, we've got the instructions for Apache. Lightspeed uses the same rules. You just might have to rearrange them possibly. And then we also have rules for Nginx, which is another popular web server software. And so those are all available. Those are different methods of server-based delivery. The EasyIO system and some other CDNs use that sort of server-based rewriting. And when you're using a server-based method, the URLs of your images don't change. So it'll look like if you would look at the resources that are being fetched by a browser, which I can, yeah, let's just do that. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work because I have Nginx on this server. Yep, so that doesn't work. Okay. We haven't. Yes, I do have a screenshot on that. So here's an example of what that looks like. So the URLs look, well, they're still JPEGs, right? Well, no. What's happened on the back end with your server is that it's gone and looked for the WebP version, and it delivers that content in place of what would normally be delivered for the JPEG image. And so it changes the actual content of the image without changing the file extension or the image URL when you're using server-based delivery. So there's CDN-based options. There's Nginx, Apache, and Lightspeed use similar htaccess or rewrite rules. Let me get back up here. If you're using a CDN that doesn't support varying the content for, let me back up. So when we're doing a WebP delivery, we always want it to be conditional. And it's conditional on two different things. First of all, it's conditioned on whether or not the user's browser supports WebP. Most browsers do now, about 95, 96%, but that still leaves 4 to 5% that are not able to load WebP. And so if you just did WebP, for example, if you're using the core WordPress WebP functionality, your visitors will have nothing. They'll have no images if they're on an old browser like that. So we always do conditional based on browser support, and then based on whether or not the WebP image exists. Because like I said earlier, WebP images aren't always the best option for every single image on your site. And so our plugin always, if it converts an image, it's going to look at the WebP version and the original. It's going to go, okay, which one's smaller? And the smaller one wins. We're not doing WebP just for the sake of WebP. We're doing WebP to make your site faster, and that means smaller images. So those two are the conditions. So any of these rewrite rules that we have here take that into account. So if your CDN doesn't support varying the content for a given URL like this, so in this case, say you're using Cloudflare, and so when they get this image from your server and deliver it to a WebP browser, they're going to give the WebP version, and they're going to cache that. And then when someone comes along and visits your site with an older browser that can't get WebP, guess what they're going to get? WebP. And their browser won't be able to load it because Cloudflare can't cache both versions. Now they have a WebP option, and so if you're using their paid plans, you can go ahead and use that, and it's awesome and easy, just like our EasyIO thing. You click a button, turn on the WebP option, and boom, you're done. But if you're on their free plan or not using their image optimization stuff, then they can't vary the content if your server is sending a WebP versus non-WebP. And so there are other CDNs that don't support that. We have a list on our doc site of CDNs that do work with that. There's the link. And so you can review that if you're using a CDN to see if your CDN is supported. This isn't comprehensive necessarily, but it's most of the popular ones. And then another thing that comes into play is server level caching. So for example, a lot of managed hosts like WP Engine will cache the assets in Nginx or another system so that it doesn't have to go back to disk and look for the files. It caches them and serves them really, really fast and awesome. But if they don't have the ability to vary the content there in that cache, you'll get the same behavior. Old browsers won't get your images. Slack, Facebook, Twitter aren't going to be able to view your images. And yeah, bad news. And so Cloudways is one of those systems where they have server level asset caching for JavaScript images and whatnot. And it doesn't vary the content. So yeah, don't use server-based WebP options with Cloudways or any host or CDN that can't vary the image content. And so that takes us on to HTML options. And we have a few of them built in. We've got a JavaScript-based option, which is typically what I would recommend if you're needing an HTML-based option because it's the most comprehensive. Notably, it's able to handle not just regular images in HTML. It can also handle CSS background images if they're inlined on the element directly. So if they're in a separate style block or style sheet, nothing will work except for server-based options. So you'd have to either use EasyIO or one of the rewrite rule setups. But otherwise, JSWebP is usually the most comprehensive. It also supports some different things like WooCommerce product variations, which are loaded into the page in JavaScript via JSON. So it supports some of those things that PictureWebP isn't able to handle. PictureWebP is a method of doing it without JavaScript, but of course it's limited to just the images that are directly in the page. No JavaScript, no external CSS or anything. And then we also have in our Swiss Performance plugin, there's the cache option where it can create a variant of the cache page with WebP URLs. So it's swapping the URLs, and then it works by giving non-WebP browsers the non-WebP version of the page cache, and then it has a version of the page cache for WebP browsers. And that works pretty slick as well. That's probably the cleanest option if you're going to go with an HTML-based option. But again, that won't necessarily support external CSS images. It does support internal and inline, so that's a little bit of an edge on JSWebP because it can support the images in style blocks that are directly in the page. Yeah. So that's those three. I won't delve into AMP. You can read the docs on that. I hate it.
I'll make a quick comment regarding AMP and
go ahead.
WebP. Don't do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep, pretty much. So I'm going to pause my screen share for a second. Let's see, was there more? I think that's about all I wanted to talk about on the WebP side of things. Not true. I did want to talk a little bit more about EasyIO. So there's some CDN options like Cloudflare. Bunny CDN has their own image optimizer system built into their CDN. It's an extra like $10 a month or whatever. But that's an option as well for a CDN-based delivery. And so there's other CDNs that offer that as well. I think Fastly might offer something like that. So yeah, but EasyIO, it's the simplest, integrates directly into WordPress via our plugin, and yeah, it does a lot of stuff automatically. It even will rewrite the URLs inside of your CSS files, as long as those CSS files are going through the CDN. It's able to rewrite the image URLs directly that way, so that's pretty slick. Yeah.
I got a question from Tim here.
20 seconds to spare.
Yeah.
I was trying to get done by 9:30 with that. All right. So Tim has a question. Is it worth converting JPEGs to WebP before uploading them to the website media library? I wouldn't do that. That's just extra time that you're spending on messing with your images. Mm-hmm. I would just, I would just upload them and let them be converted that way.
Yeah. Then you don't not having to do it manually. The system's going to take care of it automatically as you upload the image.
Yep, and that's there's some things like that people ask every once in a while. Should I do this before uploading? Should I do that? And really, the whole point of our plugin is so that you don't have to do any of that before uploading. I mean, that's why I built the plugin in the first place, because I didn't want to do that. When I was messing with images, or in the case of my in-laws' greenhouse website, they would have been uploading the images themselves, and they're not going to use Photoshop. Not a chance. They're not using anything. They're not going to convert to WebP. So especially if you've got someone else that's uploading images, that's a big help. But it's also intended to save you time, even if you know how to convert them to WebP or compress your JPEGs properly, in Photoshop or whatever. The whole point is to save you time so you don't have to fiddle with those settings.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a couple other questions incoming, looks like. Or
Go ahead. I was just going to mention with that too, there are quite a few people that I have talked with, usually photographers, who are going to be messing with their photos beforehand anyway. There's nothing against doing that. You're welcome to do it. But when it comes to converting to WebP, usually whatever conversion happens, it's almost always going to come out pretty much the same. So I think, yeah, I mean, again, you're welcome to manipulate your images all you want beforehand. But also know that the system's just going to take care of all of it for you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the tricky thing with, if you convert them beforehand, is you would then have to upload them via FTP, because you're not going to be able to necessarily, well, you might be able to get away with that. If you name them the same as we do, theoretically, and which is by appending the WebP instead of replacing the extension, so you'd end up with myimage.jpeg.webp. That's how we would name them, so that it avoids file name conflicts. And so that might allow WordPress to suck that image in, create the same exact resize version, so the thumbnails and the medium and the large and all that. That might work, but again, definitely wouldn't be the way we would recommend. Railfan Depot asks a great question, one that we've been fighting for over a year.
Yeah.
That's actually not true. They keep telling people that.
Yeah.
And if you ask them to upgrade the must-use plugin on your site, then you can install our plugin, the core plugin, Io Image Optimizer. They've been working, or they've had an update for that plugin for a year and a half. Well, almost since, what is that, 2020?
No, since
back
October.
in November, December, they had that plugin ready to go, the update for that plugin ready to go, and they still haven't rolled it out apparently. But yeah, if you push back on them with Kinsta, they will find someone that actually knows what they're talking about and get that MU plugin updated for you so that you can then install our plugin on existing sites. On new sites, that's not an issue because the new sites all get the new version of the must-use plugin. They just haven't rolled that out yet, and I don't know exactly why. It seemed like an awful long time to wait for that. It took WP Engine like 3-4 months to get that done back in 2020. So
yeah, and if you get any pushback on that, or if you need any more help getting that part figured out with them, send us an email. Send an email to support@io.io. Here it is in the chat. And I'll be happy to kind of walk you through what you need to say with them to get it done. We've had a few people,
and if all else fails, I will go harass our contacts at Kinsta and say, hey, this guy's trying to update to the new version of the plugin, and you're not letting him. Knock it off. And they'll get it taken care of. They've followed up with their support folks so many times, and it seems like people just keep slipping through the cracks, and I'm not sure how that happens, but it does.
Yeah.
So.
Send me an email. Send one email.
Yes,
to that.
Thank you for confirming that, Trevor. Yeah, we've had lots of people do that, and every time I ask Caitlin at Kinsta, she's like, "Oh yeah, just tell them to ask for the MU plugin update." And it's just like, oh,
yeah, it really is.
Specifically, you're asking for an update to the must-use plugin, and as soon as they do that, then it will allow that basically unblocks our plugin. So let me make sure I didn't miss anything because Trevor talked about some other stuff. Notice that some images broke, which seemed to be pings, and others worked. I hadn't entered that. Am I right in understanding the pings? Yeah, that's probably the case, Trevor, because, you don't get the free... well, that might also be something to do with something to do with the image libraries. It shouldn't be on Kinsta though. They should have everything needed to do WebP conversion for both. There are some quirks I will mention in version 6.3 that are skipping images in certain cases. I can't remember the exact details because I fixed it like a month ago, and we've just been working on other stuff and haven't got it released yet. But that's happening today, I promise. So that's going to be released. So I would wait till we get 6.4 out the door and then redo it. Even though it's kind of sort of a major upgrade, really the only thing that's changed is the WebP stuff. We've improved that and made it more free, so that if your server doesn't allow the Imagic or GD-based conversion, then we have the API-based conversion. But at Kinsta, you should already have that, so you're just getting bug fixes for that stuff. But yeah, you could also, if you're a customer and you've got an API key, definitely go ahead and do that.
Question from
Good plugin
Andrew
for
Cross.
Watermarking.
Yeah.
I don't. Do you know one, Adam?
I don't either. The second part of your question is funny because it's something we were just talking about. Have you thought of adding that functionality to your plugin?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Specifically, we've had a lot of requests for watermarking via our Io Cdn, and so that's something we'll be working on this year. Not sure exactly when that's going to come, but we've got, speaking of next gen image formats, we've got the Avif format that's been picking up a lot of steam. It's supported in Chrome, and I don't know if it's supported anywhere else yet. I haven't looked lately, but definitely in Chrome. And so it's at least, I think, 50% now of visitors can consume Avif images. So we'll be looking at that. And then we've got some other things, but yeah, watermarking is on the to-do list for this year. Integrating it with, for other uses, probably not. But yeah, but definitely looking to have it on the CDN for sure. Right.
There's not one that I've found. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, again, that's kind of maybe that's the opportunity for the Io Cdn to step in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, because that'll work with any of that, because it goes on top of whatever you have on your site. I was gonna double check with Trevor. Are you guys have images directly on Kinsta, or are those using S3 or some sort of cloud storage? Because that sometimes plays in there, and so there's some extra considerations if you're using S3 or Spaces or any of those cloud storage systems.
I'm going to do a shameless plug for Shane because he's not going to do it for himself. I'm not exaggerating when I say Shane is a wizard. When he looks at a website, he can tell you so many things about that website and what's going on with it. That it's amazing. It's like it's magic. So I do recommend, if you have an issue on a website or anything like that, I just want to stress this. If you have something you would like us to look at it, it's pretty cool to watch Shane in action. That's my take on all of this. So if anybody does have a website, I like watching Shane view it and see what's going on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
It's fun. I mean, I enjoy digging into all the nitty gritty and figuring out weird issues. But yeah, I don't remember, Trevor, exactly what was going on there. But yeah, there's some goofiness with images not being converted or something. Seems like. I don't remember. But yeah, it probably had something to do with S3, because if you don't have local images at all, you have to have WebP of every single image in order to use something like JS WebP or any of the HTML based stuff. because there's no way for it to be conditional because there's no local images for it to check. And so that makes things tricky. Sure. Let's pull up. Are you using EasyIO? Well, I guess I'll find out soon enough, right?
Your presentation is paused.
I know. I was just pulling something up real quick before I got that far, but thanks for the reminder. Yeah, you got EasyIO on there already, looks like. So let's unpause. Or at least Trevor does, and Andrew, I think, potentially is asking.
And Railfriend Depot.
Okay, so yeah, I see what he's saying. Yep.
Send me a ticket with that one. Because if something's showing a pixelation, that shouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. If you're seeing pixelation on any of our stuff, that's not normal.
Right.
We don't expect you to see any difference between the original and the compressed version. Every once in a rare while, you might, especially on an odd ping, but even those should be less so now with some things that we did a couple months ago on the CDN. Compressed API or otherwise, you shouldn't see pixelated images. And so here, this is, I did resume my share, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
All right. And so this is what an EasyIO URL will look like. You'll have this exactdn.com. There are custom host name options if you're on the higher plans. But yeah, so you'll see your CDN domain, and then this image here is converted to WebP successfully. And so let's just take a quick gander through some of the images here. I don't know. Are you still, Trevor, having any? Make sure I didn't miss anything. Anyway, as to whether you're having any images. That's an interesting.
Well, this is on Tim's. This is Tim's site, right?
Is this Tim's site or Trevor?
This is Tim's site.
This is Tim's site. Sorry. So what do we? So I lost track of what I was looking at.
Yeah, we're on Tim's site, and then
okay.
Yep.
Yes, we are.
And okay, Andrew, I did see your link, so we'll have a look at that.
Okay, so were we looking at anything specifically, Tim, or just showing that that's how EasyIO works? Because I may have missed a question related to that.
The pink CZT looks a little pixelated.
Okay.
Let's have a look here.
Oh, the pink CZT. Where? I'm scrolling.
Sorry, the pink cat. The pink cat, not CZT.
The pink cat. Well, this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Is
that a scaling?
I didn't notice it at first, so that's a good sign. That's one thing I'll mention. There are things that, as a graphic designer or a web designer, that you might notice that the visitors never will. So you do have to be a little careful of that. But in this case, let's see what we got. So this is a full width container, background image. There's like multiple background images here. This is kind of weird. So that those aren't actual background images. This is the background image, right? And that is a 1900 pixel image. That shouldn't be pixelated, I wouldn't think. There is some fuzziness on that, and it might partially be because of some of these hard edges here, because that's where I see it the most, is around the edges of the cat and then around the edges of the swirl. And that's sometimes, with hard edges like that, where you'll see a little more issue on WebP images.
Maybe
don't know if there's much we could try. Here's one trick that we sometimes do. Is just turn on the sharpening option For WebP, anything, not too much. Not too much. So just for kicks and giggles, let's see whether the original size of the image is. It a 1903. So that image wasn't being resized at all. It's just the WebP conversion that's maybe struggling a little bit. And then the next thing I would do is I go, okay, what's the original version of that image look like?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go, what's the original? Are we getting proper source material? Because this, like I said, this is definitely possible with potentially, what did I do? That's not a real domain. Do we not have local? Is that on S3 maybe, Tim?
Okay, you can check the source pick after.
Okay. Yeah, it might be the source. I'm not for sure, and I'm not coming up with that. Could let me do this real. No, I can't do that while I'm screen sharing. I don't want to expose anything that I haven't already exposed.
And Andrew did post a link to a.
But yeah, that would be something we'll look at for sure, Tim. And see if there is anything that can be improved there. All right. Pause sharing for a second. Okay, so what did I miss anything?
There's one from Andrew Cross. The site was dev2.lavarock. Lavarock Hall? Sure, we'll say that. Did you see that site there?
Yeah, I have it up. I was just looking to see if he had asked something specifically. So this is the site. But if there's any specific questions, go ahead and ask those. But I'll give it a gander and see how it's loading. Seems pretty quick. DOM content in under a second. Some stuff coming in after the fact, asynchronously, Stripe and whatnot. That makes sense. Yeah, all the Stripe stuff came in async, so that's good.
Serving up a lot of images.
Some fonts coming from.
You're still paused too, Shane, just so we can see.
Sure.
Thanks.
So he's got a lot. So this is a museum site. Interesting.
Okay.
So it's going to have a lot of images and stuff. Mm-hmm. And generally, most photographic stuff should be fine. And so that would be one thing where I would say, like on this cat image, I would like to think that maybe you could do that as a ping, but it'd probably be huge. So I don't know if that would work either to kind of preserve some of those sharp edges, because there are times even when our normal JPEG compression doesn't do awesome with hard edges. Was that? Let me go back. I want to check something. Okay, no, that wasn't part of the image. But just as an example of one other thing that we see sometimes where lossy compression struggles is, if there's text like this on an image, this isn't on the image. But if it were, that would be something where we would go, ooh, that might cause issues because it could get a little blurry. But so in that case, they've done it perfectly right by making it an HTML element and not having it be part of the image. And ditto for all of this stuff. It should all be part of the HTML so that it can be nice and crisp instead of being part of an image.
Andrew, Shane, actually, if you wouldn't mind just pulling up that site. Could you go on the Troy site, the museum site of Andrew's, and just inspect? It looks like you've got right-click disabled, but you can go to the dev console and inspect an image. Trying to find.
Scaled.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm curious. What's causing that? Where it says scaled, 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 scaled.
That kind of, man, it's decent. Seems decent quality. At least I'm not seeing anything obvious.
Mm-hmm.
For it to be that much, the name got. That is kind of weird. Was that run through another image optimization plugin, maybe? Andrew? I'm using ACF, but hey, we're okay with that, Andrew.
Neither do I. I'm making this up as I go along.
And I still learn stuff all the time.
So, Andrew,
yeah, it looks fine. So I don't know where that came from, but it seems okay. Normally, you would see a dash scaled when WordPress downscales it. So say you upload a 3,000 pixel image. Well, WordPress is going to crop everything or scale everything to 2560 at the max, unless you disable that. And so it would add that dash scaled. Now to have 7 of them, maybe it's been uploaded to WordPress 7 times, but how it would be rescaled every time, I'm not quite sure. That's kind of weird, because once it's been scaled, it's not going to get scaled again by WordPress. That's why I thought, well, maybe another plugin that had some sort of a quirk that if you re-upload an image, it accidentally got dash scaled and it didn't actually do any scaling on it. That would be my possible guess.
Yeah.
Not really a big deal.
It's very
maybe
odd.
A thumb regen.
Oh,
maybe if that would go in and recreate what's the full size version. Maybe. I don't think it should, but it probably depends on what regen plugin you're using. I haven't used one in quite a while, but yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Interesting.
I don't think it's going to cause any issues. It's just
no, it certainly doesn't seem to be.
Long.
If an image had been recompressed 7 times, you would expect some serious pixelation in this image, and I'm not seeing anything. So I think it's okay. But yeah, that would definitely be a candidate for whatever you want to throw on there for image optimization, where it's got a ton of images. I would definitely use lazy load. That's a no-brainer if you got a ton of images on the site. And I don't know. I don't see lazy sizes on the site yet. Let me double check. I don't know if I refreshed it. Yeah. So I'm not seeing our lazy loader at least, but yeah, lazy loading would definitely be a good no-brainer. Although, you're going to get some, let me do it this way.
Yeah, it has some.
If you're using, it's got the WordPress or the browser native. The only issue that I have with that a little bit is that it's pretty aggressive. But anyway, it will load everything. Browser native lazy loading in Chrome loads everything within like 2,500 pixels of the viewport. Well, on my screen, on a 1080p screen, the viewport's only 1080. It's 1,000 pixels tall. So we don't need, the next screen and a half of images. But to be fair, we have a little bit larger threshold than most as well. We do about 1,000. And I should say, I think it's actually, 3.5 screens worth, because it's a threshold of 2,500. So that's in addition to the screen height that's already being shown, I believe. That's the way that works. But it's when I've tested out just that, it's pretty aggressive. It's loading a lot of images that are off screen because they don't want people to complain and go, oh, the lazy load is too slow. So they're going on the super aggressive end. If you use Firefox, it's totally on the other end. It's completely lazy. There is no threshold. If it's not on the screen, it's not being loaded. And I'm not sure what Edge and Safari do with that, but theirs might be similar to Firefox, or they might be a little more aggressive. Edge might be because it's using the Chrome rendering engine. But yeah, definitely lazy load that sucker. And I think that'll give you a little bit of a boost there.
Yeah.
Lot of a boost once you get more images on the site, for sure. All right.
The header's not showing correctly. I'm just what aspect of the header is not correct?
Oh yeah, what's going on there? See if we can solve a mystery. Maybe we had a few minutes yet. Too much white space at the top. At the top.
Too much white space at the top. Do you mean like that white space between
like this kind of here with the menu and stuff?
Yes. Okay.
Let me. So there's a navigation bar there that we can see. So that's part, and maybe right above that there's something. It's not. Yeah, what's up with that? There's that, the menu bar, and then there's nothing, and this. That is strange.
If the very top div wrapper, yeah, that one contains it. I think it's the height of that.
So that's the height of the menu there, and so maybe that's, like that. That might be causing. Now I don't know that that's exactly what you want, because I'm guessing you want these here to show, but it's something to do with the padding up there on the menu, and that's the div wrapper has 90 pixels of padding, so that's pushing down. That's pushing down the entire page that far, and then I'm guessing the nav bar probably has like a negative, or no, it's using absolute positioning, so that tells the browser basically ignore that padding, just put it at 0, 0, position 0, 0 up here. So if you decrease that padding, say to like 50, something like that. Don't know. That's from your theme, so there might be an option in your theme that would allow you to set the menu height. That would tweak that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we've done on our site, because our site has a obnoxiously huge header menu, about the size of yours, I think, originally. Well, it's probably that size now. It was bigger originally, and so we decreased that quite a bit. See you later, Trevor.
Okay, Trevor.
Alrighty.
Adios.
Yep.
Rail Fan Depot. Yeah, I see that blue line on the bottom of that image. I haven't any idea where that would be coming from.
Is that on his HypnoCat site?
No, this.
Or is he talking about Troy's site?
This is Rail Fan Depot with he uploaded.
Oh no, because that was Tim's site, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was he?
If you, click on that.
Ooh, yeah, that probably shouldn't be a JPEG, but you might run into the same issue. It's kind of photographic, so ping might struggle on it. But that would be something I would try if would be to try going through sending that through EasyIO and see what it does. Actually, I can do that real quick.
Well, again, it's showing those blue lines. I won't
do that
there
because I don't want to expose that.
But yeah,
those blue lines, that's weird. Where'd that come from? Because this is just a JPEG, right? There's no CDN in front of this. This is straight from S3.
But weren't you saying you were on Kinsta and you've only been able to use the cloud version? Railfan Depot. I think. Yes, cloud version only. I mean, I don't know when you last updated that, Shane.
That's been a year.
Yeah, so it could be anything within the last year's worth of updates. There's just some old artifact there or something. I wouldn't. That's not normal behavior, obviously.
No, that's very
lines.
weird. Do you have the original?
Again, I think this might be one of those.
Oh, compression would have been done about 5 years ago. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
hard to say what happened there.
What I would say is,
so let's shoot that over to our support email, and we'll take a closer look on that. See if we can figure out what happened there. And that's very weird.
If you can,
I've never seen something like that.
Send over the original and that version, then I can definitely play around with them. Thank you. All right, Andrew.
Yeah. And man, 5 years ago, hard to say even what compression we were using at that time. We would have had the Tinify compression on Premium Plus. We probably would have had JPEG Mini. We don't use that anymore because it didn't scale. But yeah, so that would definitely be interesting. So yeah, thanks everyone for your questions. That was a lot of fun looking at things. If you got questions we still didn't answer, shoot a message to support@ewww.io, and we'll be glad to help you out with that. Yeah. So
great. All right.
Have a great day, everyone, or night, or whatever time zone you're in, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care, everybody.